we have had an increase of childhood poverty from 19% to 24%. We focus on women, and we say and their family, so we're not excluding anyone.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
All right, folks, welcome back to the Valley Labor Report, Alabama's only union talk radio show, where we're happy to provide news and analysis and commentary by and for Southern working class folks. I'm really interested in our interview we have today with Miss Angela Curry. Looking forward to talking with her. Angela, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here and honored that you want to listen to what I have to say.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we appreciate the work you're doing in the community. And one of the things we do on this show, besides talk union, is we want to highlight folks who are doing good community work outside of unions and how we can bridge those gaps and work together, pull in the same direction. So you're doing a lot of great work. And I wanted to first give you a chance to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what got you involved in the community? What got you involved in organizing and activism?
So I am Angela Curry, and I am, by now I say I'm a Huntsville native. So I've been in Huntsville since 1990. I came up here to go to Alabama A&M. I was on the women's. Yeah, I was on the women's track and field team as a walk-on. That's what got me to Alabama, was the women's track team. I saw them in high school, and they were phenomenal. So I applied to the school, I got in, and then I ended up graduating 10 years later from UAH with an entire family. So, but I was born in Syracuse, New York. I grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, and now I'm here in Huntsville, Alabama. To be honest with you, being a parent is what got me to be active. I was an active PTA member, had some issues in my child's middle school. We had a good PTA, new members, and we advocated. So we began advocating from a school board level, and then my political science degree helped to, if you could say, radicalize me, but actually wake me up to my civic duty and my civic responsibility in my community. And it's just kind of expanded from there. I did a homeless count while I was in school at UAH in my political science, obtaining my major, and gradually things just continue to expand. I've been taught to speak up if you see something that's not right. My dad taught me that when I was a kid, and it's just been compounding and exponentially growing ever since.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I've just kind of, through my involvement in Huntsville politics, I've seen your journey a little bit, and you've been involved most anything that's going on. Like, you probably, if you weren't there, you knew somebody who was there.
Right.
And so, it's one thing I can say is there are a lot more folks like us now than there used to be, maybe 10 years ago. There is a growing progressive scene in this community. And, I give you a lot of credit for that as well. So tell us a little bit about there's two organizations that I really associate you with, the Citizens Coalition for Justice Reform, and we've had some of your members on to actually talk to us about Huntsville police misconduct, and then also United Women of Color. So two different organizations. Could you tell us what they're about and what y'all do?
And actually, I have to let the cat out of the bag. And I think we've slowly been doing this over the last year or so. United Women of Color, the Citizens Coalition for Justice Reform is literally a program within United Women of Color.
Okay, thank you for making that distinction.
Yeah, but we intentionally, but in good faith, did not bring the component of United Women of Color when we launched the Citizens Coalition, because we did not want people to be hung up about race or women, or we wanted people who genuinely had a focus on criminal justice reform to come into one space so that we could build power to advocate for our rights and the rights of our neighbors. So during the George Floyd world uprisings, my mind space was not in a place. I had so much anger. I was not in a place to just go out and protest. So I thought, how can I channel this anger, this rage in a productive way? And I spoke to my board about wanting to have a coalition where we literally focus on local police reform. The federal government was not really responding, and I thought, we know people in our local community who we can talk to, who we can touch, who we see, and we can appeal to them to have changes made in our community and be a model for other communities on how the transformation took place. So the board they agreed that this was something to speak out about. This was something additional that United Women of Color should take on. We felt like women and children are directly impacted by police violence. And so there was several community members who worked with me to form the coalition, to come up with the list of 10 requests, to be at the press conference to see that it was like a collaborative community effort. We invited the city leaders, we invited the chief of police, we invited Huntsville Police Department to be at the press conference. And we kind of just went from there. Something that we didn't anticipate, like the people from the protests, the police response to the protest caused there to be a large audience that wanted to become involved with the reform. And so that just happened to be a perfect storm, I guess you could say. And so we immediately had about 1,400 people respond when we launched the group that we had on social media. We were picked up for an interview, so that helped. And then people wanted to come in and express themselves at city council. So we kind of we were a point of contact for those individuals because they saw a place they could go to speak about those issues. And we just kind of have organically grown from there.
Yeah, and I think y'all have helped to, like you said, channel. There's been a lot of anger, a lot of disgust, a lot of sadness around the conduct of Huntsville police. And as you mentioned, specifically you had folks peacefully protesting police brutality met with police brutality. Like, it's so over the top that, I can only imagine, y'all's inbox was overflowing in the days following that. And I appreciate that y'all gave folks a way to channel righteous outrage into political action, and have folks speaking at city council meetings and working on policies. So could you tell us, so I'm glad you cleared that up though about the Citizens Coalition for Justice Reform. Could you tell us a little bit more about United Women of Color? What is that organization and what do y'all do?
So just like to sum it up in one sentence, it's literally Angela walking out her passion in the earth in an organized fashion. But we are a nonprofit. We're multi-ethnic, we're multi-generational, we're intergenerational. We focus on improving the lives of women, girls, and their families. And we do that through advocacy, civic engagement, and educational empowerment. So why do we focus on women and girls? Because women and girls in our county are the majority of the population. I am a woman and I have girls, so that's just our target. And also women and girls, women-led families have the highest demographic of poverty. And then in our county, as prosperous as Madison County is, we have had an increase of childhood poverty from the last United Way assessment to the most recent United Way assessment. I think it went from 19% of children living in poverty to 24%. So those were the reasons that we focus on women and girls. And we say, and their families, so we're not excluding anyone, but our primary focus is women and girls, because we feel like that affects 3 generations. If we get mom who's head of the household, empowered and advocating for her and her issues, and then that imparts to her children. And then when her children have children, they will live an empowered life, thriving versus surviving. So we have a method all the way down.
That's great. That's great.
And we chose advocacy and civic engagement, which is really advocacy as well, because those were areas where we saw a need in our community. The civic engagement is not, we have high levels of apathy in our community as it relates to civic engagement, and we wanted to do something about that.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I mean, that's something we've talked about on the show recently, and you and I probably talked about before, the low political engagement in Alabama. And, to be frank, I think the folks in charge in Alabama probably like to keep it that way.
Right.
And so I really respect organizations such as yourself who are getting out there in the community and talking to working class people and trying to bring them into the political process, because the more of us speaking up, the louder our voice is.
Yes, we are the power base. We just do not recognize that we are the power base. And so we need to we're doing our part to help enlighten everyone about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what it's all about, empowering people to see the power they already have.
Yes.
So, this would be a good segue to just talk to us about, are there any current projects that either the Coalition or United Women of Color have going on right now, or, any recent developments that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I'll just share for United Women of Color. We have a Grow with Google. We have a partnership with Grow with Google, where we have 100 online IT career certifications. So we have 100 scholarships for that. Those online courses is free. The courses are through Coursera. And so we are excited about offering that to the community at large, and to help people increase their economic situations. We, as far as the Citizens Coalition, when we started out, we were very front facing. People saw us at City Council. I think we went 2 years straight almost to every City Council meeting. There was a Citizens Coalition for Justice Reform presence, to the point that, City Council has moved public comments to the end of the City Council meetings, unless you're speaking on an agenda item. So that
sounds like something the Huntsville School Board did to me years ago.
Yes. So
I know how that goes.
The response to citizens becoming more civically engaged was for our leadership to try to suppress it. We have learned, so this is some of the updates that the Citizens Coalition have been doing. We are working on our phase 2 of our public direct action. So this year has been a more quiet year of building alliances, developing strategy, following up via email. We've done 3 or 4 direct email campaigns this year in response to community outcries about certain situations. We receive responses on those. We have met with the mayor and the city council president several times this year. So we have we received a Ben & Jerry's grant. I don't know if you know, we were awarded the Ben & Jerry's social justice grant. So
that's awesome.
$20,000 grant. Part of what we proposed was we need an app to report police encounters. Almost like Yelp, like whether it was good or bad. Like, we need data, because when we submitted our 10 requests, we had an initial list of 10 mild requests for our city, for our government to be more transparent and for the city residents to have more access to data online. We opened up a can of worms, and we found out a lot more than what we had initially even thought. And so one of the things that we recognized at the forefront was that our city was not very transparent with sharing data. Our Huntsville Police Department, the Madison County Sheriff's Department is even worse. It is hard to find data about incidents. They have an annual report. It's incomplete. We've also realized that it's inaccurate. So we've been doing behind the scenes, back and forth communication with our city leadership regarding that information. I don't know if you know that the city of Huntsville won the Padlock Award from the National Investigative Reporters Group, which means that they have voted across the nation that the city of Huntsville, their police department, is not transparent at all. So they literally have a padlock on their information. So that was very affirming to us because we had been saying something similar, but in a nicer way for a while.
It's so nice when outside folks can kind of get a taste of what we're dealing with and can, not that you need that verification, but it feels nice when someone, from the outside sees what we're seeing.
Correct. So we, with Ben and Jerry's, we proposed to work on a third-party app to get independent information from actual residents, community members. We researched a variety of apps that are already across the country. We're currently in the beginning stages of communication with the ACLU because they have a mobile justice app. So we're in communication with ACLU of Alabama to see if we could potentially do information share if we promote their app in our area. But we're also working with another national group who is also working to develop an app because of the 6 that we found that were still active. Most of them only did video. And we want actual written reports because there's a disparity between the number of complaints that people have versus the number that are filed with the police department. So we did a community survey this year, and several of the questions alluded to that, asked about the app. Have you had an issue with HPD or any law enforcement in the area? Did you feel like it was, according to policy? Did you report? Most of the people said yes, they had incidences. Yes, they would have reported if they had an app, but they did not report to date. And so we want to explore that. We want to pull that data because looking at data can lie, but it doesn't lie. Like the truth is in data. Mm-hmm. And so we had that information. We could look at trends and things of that nature. So that's one of the things we're working on. The biggest, there was a group in South Alabama that has reached out to us based on the work we've been doing. So we're going to be working with them. So again, we've been building alliances, sharing information. The Council of State Government Justice Center, CCJR, United Women of Color, has been accepted as one of their groups across the country. So we're learning about transparency, methodologies, and public access to data. They're helping us with developing reports and making requests. We have a pro bono attorneys group that's a national group that have accepted the work of the Citizens Coalition for Justice Reform to where they can assist us with potential class action lawsuits, advisements, public requests for information, open records requests. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes so that we're building the infrastructure. We also plan to have a fellowship for the Citizens Coalition next year. We're currently seeking a coordinator to start out part-time as a salaried person and move to a full-time position because the work for the Citizens Coalition has expanded in such a positive way.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, that's a great problem to have when you have so many different, irons in the fire. You need help and have to invest in help like that. I've heard a lot of really interesting updates there, and I think y'all are really onto something with this app to report misconduct, because I think you have the ease of reporting and then the trust in the reporting, right? And this would address both of those two primary barriers. So I think that's just fantastic, and I'm really glad to hear y'all are getting some grants, getting some institutional support. That's one of the hardest things in doing any kind of social justice type work is, getting some money to do it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard work. It takes a lot of time. And there's only so much volunteers can do, ultimately to build something consistent.
True, because the Ben and Jerry's helped to fund the community service survey. We gave away, incentivized people with gift cards, giveaways, but it also is going to fund that coordinator position. So that's really important. We just have turned in our report with them, and it's potential that they will continue to fund us if they see that we're being productive. We will have a community meeting in January where we're going to share the results of the community surveys, and we're going to highlight the work that we've done over the course of the year and where we're going for 2023. And that's going to be the third week of January. We will have the Alabama Forward, some of the plaintiffs from the Merrill versus Mulligan case about the redistricting. It's currently in the Supreme Court, will be joining us. It's going to be a family-friendly event, so we're going to have activities for the kids so people can bring their children. The children will have activities to do, and we can meet with the adults.
Oh, I think that's so fantastic. And yeah, the childcare thing, as a father who is torn between all these different meetings to go to on any given night, that's right. It is tough. And I something I think a lot of unions struggle with too, is making sure that the meetings themselves are accessible to folks in whatever barriers they may have. So I think that's fantastic. We're going to add that to our little list of plugs. We're going to make sure we promote that as well, because I think that'd be a great opportunity for folks in the community to get to know each other a little better and get to know this information better about what is the community already saying about the state of our criminal justice system.
Right.
And then what can we do now moving forward in years ahead. So I think that is fantastic. Were there any specific plugs or websites, social media channels? Where should folks, follow y'all and stay plugged into what's going on?
So because we do a lot, we have multiple pages. So on Facebook, United Women of Color Huntsville. Then there's also the CCJR is a page. We have a private Facebook group, the Citizens Coalition for Justice Reform. We do actually screen people before we approve them, and we talk a little more openly in that private group. But we're also on Instagram with the same, on Instagram we're UWOKE_AL and we're CCJR_AL. We have websites for both. So ccjr.org or al.org, and we have unitedwoc.org. But you can find CCJR from the United Women of Color's page because it's listed as one of our programs. And then we will be doing a digital revamp. 2023 is going to be very interesting for us. We're going to be a lot more active digitally and more direct. So now is a great time to join either of those places. And if you want to get our monthly newsletters, you can sign up on the United Women of Color website.
Awesome. Yeah, I highly recommend folks, especially those of you who are in Huntsville proper, definitely get plugged in with them so you can just stay informed on what's going on and know about these opportunities to get involved. And I just wanted to close by saying real quick that working class people are disproportionately the ones dealing with a broken justice system, and racial and ethnic minorities are disproportionately working class. I say a lot on the show that, the working class is the most diverse class. Right. So if there's someone listening who's wondering, why are the union guys talking about this? Why is Angela on the show? When we're normally talking union, that's why, because this is an issue that affects so many of our brothers and sisters in the community. The burden of, the burden of a dysfunctional judicial system, the burden of the fines and fees, the burden of police misconduct, the burden of mass incarceration and the drug war. These burdens fall primarily on working class people. And I believe we as union members have a responsibility to educate ourselves on the political issues that affect our lives and the lives of our neighbors. And I would argue that includes a responsibility to advocate for a more just legal system. You know, we talk a lot on the show about how labor law is broken in this country and it is stacked against working people and against unions. But criminal law is much the same way. It is stacked against everyday people. And it's going to be up to us working in coalition with other folks to help transform our communities and transform this justice system. So I just wanted to put that out there, you know, as we wrapped up today as to why I think it was important to have you on the show. And I think the work that you're doing is very important.
Well, thank you. And I agree with you 100%. I don't think because we're a lot of working class and a lot of us are so enthralled in our day-to-day issues and living that we don't understand how so much of this intersects. So I appreciate you having me on and understanding that intersectionality.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Angela, was there anything else you needed to say?
No, next year, I know that we have been invited CCJR has been invited to meet with the Huntsville Police Citizen Advisory Council. Oh. So we are taking them up on their invitation until we are no longer invited. But we do plan to have meetings with them, specific meetings. And so we really just invite our neighbors, our community to become a part because we are doing this for us all, but we can only do it well with you all.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's strength in numbers, and folks definitely really encourage y'all to get plugged in and participate in this dialogue. And Angela, hopefully you or some of your members can come back on the show in 2023 to tell us how some of these meetings go, because I'm sure that'll be interesting.
That would be great. Thank you so much for having me on again.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, y'all. Solidarity, everyone.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.